Hey everybody, it is You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. And this week my first question comes from Inertia, who says, Steve, I've been listening to you for about a year, but this is my first question. It is November, and I wanted to know if you have ever done the NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. For those people who have never heard of it, www.nanowrimo.org. I have never done NaNoWriMo. I've known several people throughout my life that have attempted it. It's a great idea. I think it's an awesome thing. I would try it probably if I had more time, but I have a full schedule with writing and producing videos for this YouTube channel. If I had the time, I would love to try NaNoWriMo. I had an idea for a novel about 15 years ago. I don't know if I would want to try to write that one now, because now that I think back on it, it probably wouldn't be very good. And it feels very, very sort of Mary Sue-y, you know, like sort of a flattering, semi-autobiographical type of thing that I would like to think I'm far too mature and sophisticated to want to write now. But yeah, I would love to try NaNoWriMo. The hardest thing about writing is finding a reason to force yourself to do it. Writing is one of the most amazing creative things you can ever do, but no matter how passionate a writer you are, there will always be days where you will do anything to avoid writing. And this is why deadlines, I think, can actually be helpful. And so even if you set a deadline for yourself, even if you say, I'm going to take part in this, you know, month-long novel writing thing, and yeah, it's completely voluntary, but nonetheless, you're setting yourself a deadline. You're saying, I'm going to start on this day, and I need to be finished by this day. I have a month to get this done. That is actually a huge help. It's a huge motivation. It's a reason to write. And that is the wonderful thing about NaNoWriMo. And if I had time to do it, I would definitely try it, at least once. And then we'll see how it goes after that. But I would give it a shot. But I just don't have time to do it this year. Probably not for a while yet. Christina M. What are your thoughts on the World Health Organization's declaration of processed meat as a Group 1 carcinogen and red meat a Group 2A carcinogen? How about the parallels drawn in the current response to this information and the response previous generations had to the information about smoking? Thoughts on plant-based diets and the evidence in favor of them, as evidenced by Drs. Greger, McDougall, Esselstyn, Bernard, Campbell, etc. I've pretty much felt all along that a plant-based diet was probably more healthy. I've said before in these videos when someone has asked, you know, what do I feel about vegetarianism or veganism? I'm pretty sure that a vegetarian, or even beyond that, a vegan diet is probably better for you than a diet that includes eating meat. And the reason I don't do that is simply personal weakness on my part. I don't really argue that a diet that includes meat is better for you. I don't have the credentials to argue that anyway. I don't know, honestly. I don't know enough about the subject. I haven't studied it enough. I can't say for sure whether I honestly think that a meat-based diet is better for you or worse for you or whatever. But I have the sense that it's probably worse for you, that a plant-based diet is probably better for you in terms of your health. And I just don't do it because meat's just too darn delicious. It overrides my concern for my own health. It overrides my morals. It's just something that I just am not willing to commit to doing. But as for my response to, you know, processed meat being a Group 1 carcinogen and red meat being a Group 2 carcinogen, a Group 2A carcinogen, in a way I was a little relieved because I don't eat a lot of meat. I do eat meat semi-occasionally, I guess. My diet is not built around it, but I would not want to give it up. So I don't feel like I eat enough of it to be like in real mortal danger. I didn't respond to that news by going, oh shit, I'm definitely getting cancer. You know, maybe I'll get cancer, maybe I won't, but I don't know if it'll have anything to do with the amount of meat I've consumed or not. I don't know. I didn't feel a real strong emotional response to that World Health Organization decision. I made a joke about it when there was a news story that I shared that spoke about, you know, meat is now considered a carcinogen according to the WHO, and I shared it on Facebook with the status, turn out the lights, the party's over. So I responded kind of flippantly to it. I'm not that worried about it. Maybe I should be. Maybe we all should be. maybe we all should be thinking more carefully about our diets, but I don't know. That is obviously a conversation that I am not ready to have at this point. Aaron Reynolds, Steve, I am finding certain people's insistence that there is a war on police nauseating and disgusting. I would not dispute that officers face real dangers on a daily basis, but I cannot abide this idea that they are being slaughtered at an ever-increasing rate because of movements like Black Lives Matter. My question, how do we show support for law enforcement without accepting their bullshit? I wouldn't dare raise this question here in Oklahoma, but perhaps you have more courage to explore the issue for me. The most important thing that we can do is to make it clear that police are not the enemy here. Systemic racism is the enemy. Racial prejudice, oppression of minorities, those are the enemies. Police are not the enemies. And in fact, if police agree with the protesters that these things are problems, the police and the protesters should not be enemies. The most destructive thing in this whole Black Lives Matter versus the police thing is this pitting of the two sides against each other as though they are natural enemies. If the problem is police brutality and racism in the meting out of law enforcement, then police should be all over that. They need to drop this thin blue line, circle the wagons, code of silence horseshit. Of course police have a dangerous job, and of course police have a completely necessary job. You can't have a civil society, you can't have a democratic, free society where people feel safe and where people feel as though the laws are there to protect them if you don't have a police force. We need to have police. But police need to be trustworthy. Police need to be held to account when some of them fuck up and when some of them break the rules or when some of them abuse their authority. And police need to have an unbreakable pact, a contract with the communities that they serve, where it's made clear to everybody that the police are on the side of the people. The police do not stand against the people. The police do not choose themselves and their own interests and the interests of their own organizations over those of the people. That's counterintuitive to the whole concept of police. Police serve the people, and that's a sacred trust. And if they're not doing that, then we need to get some new police, because that's the only reason they're there. Police aren't there just so cops can have jobs. Police are there to serve and protect. It's written on their fucking cars. So the notion that the police and the protesters are enemies needs to be done away with completely. I think the message to police needs to be, we don't want to be your enemies. We want to fix the problems that are not only afflicting us, but are damaging you and your profession. If you are a good cop and you care about doing a good job and upholding the law and protecting your community and serving justice, then you should be just as eager to root out corruption and to support reforms that will diminish the racial oppression, the racial injustice that is inflicted by police on people of color, which is undeniable, which is something that happens. You need to be just as gung-ho about those reforms as the protesters. And you need to stop painting protesters police really need to stop saying, making black folks who say, could you stop killing us, please? Making those people out to be the enemy. Because those are not the enemy. Those are the people who are serving justice, who are demanding justice. And it's the job of the police department to help to provide justice to those people. That needs to be the narrative, that the police aren't the enemy. The injustice that is inflicted by some police as a result of institutional prejudices and institutional racism, that is the enemy. And the police should be just as crazy to fix that as the protesters. Malevolent divinity. Honestly, is the atheist movement promoting equality? I mean, we should be focusing in part on taking care of kids who are getting disowned because they don't believe in their parents' bullshit, but I've always thought the attempts of the atheist movement were more geared toward empowering science and reason and fighting against religion's attempt to control the government, or far worse, the education system. Like, It's technically a minority, and there are some disadvantages to admitting it, like difficulties getting elected or being born in the Bible Belt, but isn't the main focus more on keeping education factual instead of mythical? You say in your question that atheists are a minority, and I am always very careful not to underline the minority status of atheists too much, because even though atheists are a minority in this country, and even though atheists do suffer hardship because of that minority status, atheist is not the worst thing to be. But at the same time, I don't want to turn my back on those atheists of all stripes, of all backgrounds, who face hardship because of their atheism. And I think standing up for the rights of those people and advocating for normalization of atheism, for acceptance of atheists as equals to our religious fellow people, is very important and is absolutely something that the atheist movement should be doing and is doing. A lot of it is just raising awareness, is just visibility. You know, some people ask, even some people within the atheist community ask, what is the purpose of things like the Reason Rally? Why do we want to do this? What are we doing when we gather by the thousands in public like that? And part of it is community. I think that's a big part, just coming together and seeing each other and talking to each other. But also it's making a statement that we're here, making a statement of our visibility, of our existence, saying, look, we're here, we live among you, we're part of you, we're part of this community, we're part of this country, we're part of this world. And we work alongside religious folks, we live alongside religious folks, we are your co-workers, we are your family members, your friends, etc. And if you don't think that we deserve to be treated equally, then we need to talk about that. You know, and atheism needs to be normalized, just as other non-traditional here in America religious identities need to be normalized. People need to not be mistreated or treated differently because they are of any particular religious faith or because they are of no religious faith. And I don't see why the atheist movement should not have that as one of its most important goals. And I think it does. I don't think that means that every person involved in the atheist movement has to be all about that. If you are an atheist in the movement because you care predominantly about science education, I think that's great. And I think the movement needs people like that. I think that kind of work is very important. But that can't be the only thing. Because atheists are people. Atheists are members of a society that all too often mistrusts them and shuns them still. And that needs to be fixed. And that is a job for the atheist movement. Yannick Muller, hey Steve, what do you think of religious films like The Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston? Even though the message and the blind stupidity of the characters in it bothers me, I can't help but admire and enjoy the film deeply. I cringe or laugh out loud at many things that were meant dead serious, but I still consider it to be one of my favorites. Thoughts? I love The Ten Commandments. I think The Ten Commandments is a great film. I think it's a beautiful example of just old Hollywood epic. You know, it's a lush sort of a pageant almost. And I like Charlton Heston as an actor. He kind of lost me with the whole NRA thing a bit later in life, but as an actor, I thought he was terrific. I always loved him. And I like The Ten Commandments a lot. It's a great big Hollywood spectacle. And there's a lot about it to admire, both as a spectacle and as a film. I'll tell you another great biblical epic that I really, really love is the original King of Kings, which is a silent movie. Most people know the color version from the late 50s, or maybe early 60s. I think it was the early 60s. That starred Jeffrey Hunter as Jesus, the brown-haired, blue-eyed, super ultra American looking Jesus. But that was actually a remake of the original silent version. That is a great film, especially if you're an admirer like I am of silent cinema. It's a huge, a big Hollywood silent epic film that is just phenomenal. Just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you can't enjoy films with religious themes, especially if they're a classic movie like that. And yeah, of course, there are parts of it that you laugh at or that you find difficult to take seriously. That's, you know, whether you depart from the religious conviction of the movie or not. I mean, anytime you watch an old movie like that, there are always going to be things that don't quite match up to your modern sensibility. But yeah, I think The Ten Commandments is a terrific movie. I think the original King of Kings is a terrific movie. I think a lot of those big Hollywood biblical epics are enjoyable. And the fact that I don't happen to share that religion doesn't really prevent me from appreciating what there is to appreciate there. Scasis. So after watching so many of your videos that feature the real star of this show, Audie, I've really got to ask, just how tolerant is she? My cat Jessie will let me pick her up, but she'll protest at first and will try to struggle free if you don't hold her still. With Audie, I've seen you kiss her, shift her around in your arms, shake her gently, and even use her as a double-arm dumbbell for a biceps workout. And all she ever does is just occasionally meow. So just how much is she willing to put up with? A hell of a lot. She is actually a very sweet and very tolerant cat. I'm not going to show her to you right now because she's just off camera sleeping on the couch. But yeah, occasionally she protests. When I use her for those good news videos, it very much depends on the time of day or on what she's been doing leading up to there. Sometimes she actually will come to me. She'll see me setting up the backdrop in the camera, and she'll actually get up from whatever she's doing and get down on the floor like she's almost anticipating it. But other times she's asleep on the couch and I have to sort of wake her and pick her up, and sometimes she's sleepy and sort of cooperative, and other times she's really kind of upset that I've disturbed her, and it takes a while to get, usable takes for the video. It really depends. But yeah, she doesn't mind being picked up. She doesn't mind being petted or stroked or handled. Sometimes she doesn't like it, but I think that's with most cats. Even the most, friendly cat will have moments where they don't want to be touched. And I think that's just cats, But I think she's like that because we've always been very hands-on with her. We've had her since she was a kitten. We took her in. She was on the street. She was like a stray cat, but she was very young when we got her and took her in. And we always talk to her. We're always petting her and including her, making her feel like she's a part of this unit that we have here. And I think that's it. I think she's just been really well socialized for us, and she doesn't mind being picked up and played with, usually. But when she does mind, look out, because whatever power in the universe is responsible for that thunder pales next to cat rage, as I'm sure all you cat owners watching will agree. Oh boy, I better finish while she's still asleep. Anyway, it's time for
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
Joanna Roberts, my daughter wants to know who your favorite Supergirl / woman is and why. Does your daughter mean like female superhero character, or does she actually mean like Supergirl? Because in terms of Supergirl, I can only think of two. One is Melissa Benoist, who's playing her on TV right now, and the other is Helen Slater, who played her in the movie. So of those two, I'd have to say Melissa Benoist. So far, she's done really well. But if you mean just female superhero character in general, I really love the Barbara Gordon Batgirl, who eventually became Oracle, and then now I think she's back to being Batgirl again, but I really love Batgirl. Sabrina Loizides Meredith, hey Steve, who's your favorite Catwoman? My personal favorite is Eartha Kitt from Season 3 of the Adam West Batman show. How about you? I'm going to also go with an Adam West show Catwoman, but I have to say Julie Newmar, it seems like she's the most popular pick, so I'm not really breaking any new ground, but I usually don't. My tastes are pretty run-of-the-mill and middle of the road. Yeah, Julie Newmar. Myasis Dragon. I like that. Myasis Dragon. I just got that literally the moment I read that. Steve, does this look infected? See. Oh, let me WebMD it. It says, "Do you want me to call the hospital?" I think it does. I think it's probably infected. Patrick Dodds, Steve, besides The Room, what are your other favorite terrible movies or guilty pleasures? Manos: The Hands of Fate, Plan 9 from Outer Space, The Adventures of Pluto Nash. Something else? Mine is Wired with Michael Chiklis as John Belushi. Ooh, that's a good one. Oh, Roadhouse. You can't beat Patrick Swayze. Patrick Swayze just in general. Patrick Swayze to me is the king of cheese. And I loved him. And I miss him. If I had to pick one, it would be Roadhouse. Solon Throwaway. Steve, what are your feelings about fountain pens? I think I've only ever actually used a fountain pen once in my life. And I mean, like, I wrote with it one time. And I think it was because a professor of mine at college used one. And I used it to write something. And I mean, it was nice. I guess it wasn't nice enough that I decided I needed to start using them. But it was all right. Not exactly a life-changing experience. I'm happy with my astronaut pen, which is right here, by the way. Crowbro. Hi, Steve. What do you think is more harmful, traditional religious beliefs or New Age woo-woo? I mean, it's hard to pick because they can both be really harmful in their own way. I think New Age woo-woo, in a way, might be more insidious because people, very often people who accept it have rejected traditional religion, and therefore they think that they're okay, that like they're still making rational arguments and and thinking rationally because they don't buy into all that church stuff, but they buy into all this crazy New Age stuff, which is not all that different. I don't know. As far as which is more harmful, I think it's probably even. But I think in terms of more insidious or more seductive in our modern scientifically literate world, it's probably the New Age stuff because it can sneak in there, even with people who have rejected traditional religions. Colaxanthe. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Hey Steve, what themes or direction do you want to see in the new Star Trek series coming January 2017? I am a simple Star Trek fan with simple tastes and simple desires. I would just love to see a straightforward space adventure series. Kind of like the classic Star Trek was, where it deals with allegory and political themes. There's definitely going to be social commentary, but first and foremost, it is a space adventure series. And it's fun, and it's goofy, and it's larger than life, and it has likable characters played by likable actors, and for the most part, it doesn't get too heavy. That's what I would love to see in a new Star Trek series. That's what a fucking throwback sci-fi adventure series. Clark Evan. Hey Steve, you ever get into Dungeons and Dragons? If so, do you like it as a storytelling medium? I never got into Dungeons and Dragons. I actually think, looking back, one of the turning points of my life was when I was at a friend's sleepover party, and I came downstairs, and 4 or 5 of the friends who were sleeping over were in the kitchen around the table playing a D&D game, and they asked me if I wanted to play, and I said no. I think that was a moment in my life where I could have gone left or right, and I went a particular direction, and I have been on that path ever since. As a story, I've never played it, so I can't speak from personal experience, but I've been friends with people who have been D&D players and have also been just RPG players in general and have, created characters for games and stuff. And as a writer, it always kind of struck me as a waste of time. I would always think, you're putting this much thought into creating a character. Why not just write a story with the character? You're putting all this effort into creating a really interesting, multi-layered, fascinating character for a game. Why not just write a story about them? So that's just the mentality I have. Again, I came to a fork in the road and I chose my path. Hey, that's it for the questions. Time for the shout out as always. And the shout out this week is one I really want you guys to take to heart because it is, first of all, it's for a YouTube channel as usual. It's for the Gaming Heretic channel. As you may know, the Gaming Heretic is the gaming channel produced by my friends from the Skeptics and Believers show, James and Michael. And they are taking part this year in an event that I actually didn't even know about until James told me about it, and I think it's a really great thing. It's called Extra Life, and it is a 24-hour gaming marathon that is intended to raise money for children's hospitals. The beneficiaries are all hospitals in the Children's Miracle Network series of hospitals. And if you want to help out Michael and James and all the rest of the gang from the Gaming Heretic to raise money for their chosen hospital, on November 28th, in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is their neck of the woods, they are holding a live Extra Life event at the Score in Murfreesboro. And you can go there to participate if you happen to be in the Tennessee area, the Murfreesboro area, or you can go to playgameshealkids.com and donate to their fundraiser. You can also go to extra-life.org if you want to know more information about the Extra Life organization in general. But the Gaming Heretics beneficiary is Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. that is the hospital that is going to receive the proceeds from the donations that these guys collect on November 28th. So I'm going to remind you about it when we get a little bit closer to the actual day. But November 28th, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, the Score, if you happen to be in that area, or if you're not in the area but you still want to donate to the cause, which again supports the Children's Miracle Network and Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, you can go to playgameshealkids.com. It is a 24-hour gaming marathon. They're going to stay up for a full 24 hours playing games, raising money, having fun, and it's for a great cause. And if you guys can spare a couple of bucks on November 28th, I'm sure that they would love to have your support. And I believe you can donate now, actually, if you don't want to wait until the 28th. So there you go. Extra Life for Kids, the Gaming Heretic channel. It's a great cause, and I hope you check it out. I also hope that you check out the Lemme Listen podcasts. It's not as great of a cause as raising money for a children's hospital, but it feeds my ego, and it feeds the ego of my very good friend Jason Harding, and helps improve our fortunes as well. So, I mean, it's kind of a good cause in a little sort of small way. There are 3 Lemme Listen podcasts that you can check out if you haven't done so before. There is Lemme Finish, which is co-hosted by Jason and Finite Atticus. There is American Monsters and How to Destroy Them, which is the improv comedy podcast that is like a cross between Twin Peaks and Coast to Coast AM. And American Monsters is actually on hiatus right now for the rest of the year, but Jason is going to be posting new content in that usual upload slot to sort of keep your interest and keep feeding you a bit of extra material until it's time for season 2, which is going to start next year. But if you haven't listened to it, it's the perfect time to catch up. You can listen to all 12 episodes of season 1 of American Monsters. It is just awesome, and I was thrilled and honored to guest star in a couple of those episodes. And most importantly, for my narcissistic ass, I want you to check out the Late Seating podcast, which Jason and I co-host together. It is the movie review podcast. We review classic movies, give them a fresh look, make fun of it, whether we like it or not, and then opine on whether or not we think this movie deserves to be considered a classic. And the classic movie that we are reviewing in the new episode that goes up today, the very day that this video is published, is that James Bond film to end all James Bond films, except it didn't end the James Bond films. They made like 20 more after this. But anyway, Goldfinger. It was a ton of fun to review. I'm not really a huge James Bond fan, but it was fun to watch Goldfinger again for the first time in a few years and review it with Jason. It's a great show. It's funny. It's so much fun for us to do. And we really love that a lot of you guys are listening to it. And if you haven't been listening to it, what better time than now? Check out the Late Seating podcast. Check all of them out. You can go to LemmeListenPodcasts.com and listen to all of the shows I've just been blathering on about, which you should totally do. I'm highly recommending it, and not just because I host one of them, and not just because Jason is a friend, because I really believe in the quality of the work. I want you to believe me when I say that. Anyway, that's it for me, everybody. I'm out of here. Please leave a comment on this video to ask me a question for next time, because in order for me to do this, you have to ask. And you can ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. Leave your question in the comments below, and I will answer as many of them as I possibly can next time. So thank you guys for watching, and until next time, take care. Hey folks, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it, share it, subscribe to my channel if you're not subbed already, and also please consider helping me to make more videos like this by becoming a supporter of mine on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron of this channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.